station, I could see down the hallway. They're all jumping up, high-fiving each other, lighting cigars, celebrating that they had arrested Darlie. And I just told them, I said, you guys, y'all got the wrong person. You guys are making a big mistake.
And some still believe that. A new docuseries on WFAA takes a closer look at one of the most high-profile murder cases in North Texas. Darlie Routier was convicted of killing one son and by implication her other young boy as well. She's been on death row since 1997, but the last offense is casting doubt on the case. I'm joined now by Toby Shook, lead prosecutor in the Routier trial. He was interviewed for the docuseries. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So you knew about this docuseries. Clearly you were interviewed for it. You have been adamant, though, since the conviction from the beginning that the evidence is very strong in this case. So why do you think, though, that it continues to be such a point of interest for the public?
Well, one is the nature of the case. You had a mother who has murdered her children in a brutal manner in a upper middle class neighborhood in Dallas. That just doesn't happen every day. So that caught not only local attention but national attention when it first happened. And just the nature of that publicity has spurred that on, and then through the years we've had many shows like this talk about these issues, so it stayed in the public eye.
Now, you obviously knew that this show was going to have a heavy slant, so you still agreed to be a part of it. What did you think of last night's episode? I understand you watched.
Yes, I did. Wasn't surprised because from the first conversation I had with the people doing the documentary, is obviously they had their minds made up and where their story was going to be, but we thought it was important to at least address some of the issues. It's frustrating because you don't have control over what they put, and it's obviously what they present is nothing that actually occurred in the trial or the way it happened at all. And there's nothing that actually occurred in the trial or the way it control over what they put, and it's obviously what they present is nothing that actually occurred in the trial. It's frustrating because you don't have control over what they put, and it's obviously what they present is nothing that actually occurred in the trial or the way it happened and all the issues addressed in trial. But it's kind of what we expected, but it is frustrating.
We did a poll earlier. About 76% of people do think she's guilty. Our viewers who were voting in that poll, with a small percentage believing she's innocent. Has there ever been a moment that gave you pause to think perhaps % of people do think she's guilty? Or
it is frustrating.
We did a poll earlier. About 76% of people do think she's guilty. Or
frustrating.
We did a poll earlier. About 76% of people do think she's guilty. Or about 76% of people do think she's guilty. Or about 76% of people do think she's guilty. Our viewers who were voting in that poll, with a small percentage believing she's innocent. Has there ever been a moment that gave you pause to think perhaps she is innocent?
No. In fact, it was a strong circumstantial evidence case, and from information learned since the trial, it's gotten stronger. One of those from WFA news reporter after the trial discovered that Darlie Routier had taken a lie detector test and failed 3 months before the trial. Robert Riggs was able to find those documents, which confirmed what we already knew. In addition, at the trial, Darlie Routier and Darren Routier testified they had a perfect marriage. Everything was fine. There weren't financial problems. Our position was things were going badly in that house, bad finances. After the guilt, 4 or 5 years later, they switched their position. Darren Routier gave an affidavit that Darlie asked for a divorce the night of the killings or before the killings. They were in deep financial problems. And the question I came when I heard that was, well, then why did they lie to the jury on the stand about those issues? And if you're going to lie about major issues like that, you're going to lie about other things.
All right, thank you for coming in. We appreciate it.
Why did they lie to the jury on the stand about those issues? And if you're going to lie about major issues like that, you're going to lie about other things. They lie to the jury on the stand about those issues. And if you're going to lie about major issues like that, you're going to lie about other things. About those issues. And if you're going to lie about major issues like that, you're going to lie about other things.
All right, thank you for...
And if you're going to lie about major issues like that, you're going to lie about other things. And if you're going to lie about major issues like that, you're going to lie about other things.
All right, thank you for coming in. We appreciate it. Toby Shook, lead prosecutor on the Darlie Routier.
This is the News 8 Update.
We don't charge people with capital murder without being very sure of ourselves.
A Rowlett woman is charged with stabbing her 2 young sons to death.
If she did, then This was definitely not the Darlie that we know and everybody else knows.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us. Channel 8 News has learned that shortly after arriving on the crime scene 2 weeks ago, detectives suspected that someone inside that house in Rowlett had killed the little boys.
Nevertheless, parallel investigations pursued Darlie Routier's reports of a knife-wielding intruder and the inconsistencies in her story. Tonight, she has been charged with 2 counts of capital murder. Channel 8's Robert Riggs joins us with more on how police say they solved the case. Robert?
John and Chip, evidence at the crime scene told one story. Darlie Routier's account of that deadly night was a far cry different. Police say it was a vicious, planned attack in which the mother allegedly stabbed her children to death and spun a tale to cover it up. 26-year-old Darlie Routier is under a suicide watch in her Dallas County jail cell. Rowlett police and an arrest warrant for capital murder say her lack of concern for her dying sons and inconsistent statements point to Routier's guilt. Investigators believe that Routier's story that she slept through the deadly stabbings of 6-year-old Devon and 5-year-old Damon, who were just a few feet away, and slept through multiple cuts inflicted upon herself, is incredible.
We're expecting a lot of controversy. You know this is a significant case as well as we do. We're convinced and confident in our case, and at trial will be where it's proven.
Routier's 911 call at 2:31 in the morning of June 6th and her unusual behavior immediately raised suspicion. She told the 911 dispatcher that they had just broken in and stabbed me and my children in the first floor den where they were asleep. She later changed the story to a lone assailant. The arrest warrant states that despite the emergency, Routier never made attempts to stop their bleeding, touch them, or render other first aid. Instead, she was preoccupied with a minor wound on her neck.
And we were in a difficult situation, trying to reassure a quiet, peaceful community here that we didn't have a psychopathic murderer walking the street, but at the same time not jeopardize this case.
Investigators say a window screen was cut to make it look like the killer broke in. They found a knife inside the Routier's kitchen used to cut the screen. A second butcher knife from the kitchen was used to inflict many powerful stab wounds into the chest and back of the little boys. Routier told police she was stabbed on the couch, but there was no appreciable blood there. Police believe Routier slashed her own throat in the kitchen. Routier claims she chased the assailant through the kitchen, but only her bloody bare footprints were found, no trace of an intruder. Routier told police the killer dropped the knife in the utility room, but there were no bloodstains there. When the 911 dispatcher told Routier not to touch the knife, she responded, "I already touched it and picked it up," and later said, "I wonder if we could have gotten the prints, maybe."
It has stuff on there that only the people involved know about, and I think it's some important evidence on that tape, things that are said.
43 seconds into the 911 call, Routier told police her husband Darren just ran downstairs, but she never asked about the safety of her 8-month-old baby boy who was sleeping upstairs with his father. Their home remained unoccupied for the past 2 weeks as investigators stripped the interior for evidence. Their computer business, which tests circuit boards, appears to have been shut down for some time. The Routier's home phone still answers with an eerie message.
Don't believe everything that the media is saying. I mean, the closest thing that they've got is the information that we've given them.
Police say Routier's husband is not a suspect. Her court-appointed attorney has not returned our frequent calls today. Chip, John.
Robert, a couple of questions a lot of folks are asking about. Is there a motive in this case, and then where does the investigation go from here?
Well, investigators say there was a $5,000 life insurance policy on the boys, but have ruled that out as a motive. They are looking at the possibility of past psychological problems and marital discord. And DNA testing is continuing on blood samples to further pinpoint the trail left by Darlie Routier through the house. And investigators tell me that one of the reasons Rowlett solved this case relatively quickly, were able to crack it, is they put aside their egos and they solicited the top expertise from departments across the metropolitan area.
All right. Thanks a lot, Robert.
This is the News 8 Update.
If I'm put to death, I'll leave this world with a free conscience.
Oh, I'm just a little tired of seeing the same old Darlie saying the same old things.
Prosecutors react to this evening's network interview with Darlie Routier as they show us the evidence they used to convince a jury she was responsible for the stabbing death of her 5-year-old son.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. This was Routier's first nationwide television interview. Reporter Robert Riggs has reaction. Robert.
John and Tracy, the Dallas district attorneys are angry tonight with the characterization we just saw on Primetime Live of Darlie Routier as the all-American mom. Prosecutors say the brutality of the murder, captured in crime scene photographs, document a trail of evidence that proves Routier committed the crime. Tonight, evidence you've never seen before.
I was a normal person.
On Texas Death Row for Women, Darlie Routier hopes her family can raise up to $50,000 to put her under hypnosis. Routier believes the trance could conjure up a better description of the man she claims stabbed her sons to death and cut her throat. But in these first ever released crime scene photos from Routier's murder trial, prosecutors say all of the evidence points to an inside job.
If I would have just died with my children that night, it would have spared a lot of pain. But then I also think that if I would have died that night, that my husband would be sitting where I'm at right now.
She tries to portray herself as kind of June Cleaver. And, June Cleaver, she's not.
Police found most of the Routier's home picture perfect on the night of the murders. A wedding gown was draped over a chair for the Routiers to renew their vows. An FBI crime scene analyst noted there was little property damage for such extraordinary human devastation. Despite Routier's story of a violent struggle in the family room, a glass tabletop and flower pot is only tilted sideways.
If you are to believe Darlie Routier is not guilty of this crime, you have to believe she slept through her son 1 foot from her being murdered, her other son 4 feet from her being murdered, and I guess her sleeping through having her own throat cut and not waking up.
Investigators say it's a textbook case of staging, down to Routier superficially cutting her neck. This knife from the Routier's own kitchen was used for the deep penetrating wounds into the boys. Investigators found blood from both boys splattered on the front right shoulder of Routier's blouse. Consistent, they say, with blood being slung each time Routier raised the knife to stab.
I know the truth. I know what really happened.
Now, I want to go on here just real quick. I stopped it real quick because the word that Dino and I have been triggered by is the word superficial. And what it means. To me, it means minor, not threatening. And in the medical evidence, it tends to mean minor and not threatening. Donnell says that it means directional. Right? The wound is minor. And according to the doctor, he meant it as minor. Donnell says it's meaning directional. Okay, but I wanted to play this for a minute and I'll stop it in just a second.
Was draped over a chair for the Routiers to renew their vows. An FBI crime scene analyst noted there was little property damage for such extraordinary human devastation. Despite Routier's story of a violent struggle in the family room, a glass tabletop and flower pot is only tilted sideways.
If you are to believe Darlie Routier is not guilty of this crime, you have to believe she slept through her son 1 foot from her being murdered, her other son 4 feet from her being murdered, and I guess her sleeping through having her own throat cut and not waking up.
Investigators say it's a textbook case of staging, down to Routier superficially cutting her neck.
Now, Robert Riggs followed this case strongly. Robert Riggs is a Peabody award-winning journalist, all right? He knows words. He knows how to write. He knows how to put things down into story form. If you notice, he just said, down to her superficial minor wound. I'm trying to bring it back to where he says that.
Down to Routier superficially cutting her neck. This knife,
waking up.
Investigators say it's a textbook case of staging, down to Routier superficially cutting her neck.
Superficially cutting her neck. Okay? Not her superficial minor wound, but he did say she had minor wounds. So did the doctor. But he says superficially cutting her neck. Again, I will reiterate. Robert Riggs also covered the Luby's mass shooting there in Killeen, Texas, to a T. Again, his background is in literature and English and journalism. And he just said superficially. He wasn't describing the direction that it went. He was describing the amount of majority that it was, superficially. Now, if anyone here wants to tell me that a master's degree in English and literature, award-winning journalist with the Peabody Award for journalism is mistaking that word superficial, then please come and tell us how he's casting a spell on somebody. Superficially cutting her own neck.
This knife from the Routier's own kitchen was used for the deep penetrating wounds into the boys. Investigators found blood from both boys splattered on the front right shoulder of Routier's blouse. Consistent, they say, with blood being slung each time Routier raised the knife to stab.
Bam.
I know the truth. I know what really happened. If I'm put to death, I'll leave this world with a free conscience.
Gold jewelry and a Rolex watch were openly missed by the intruder. Routier says he fled through the adjoining kitchen, but only a single wine glass was broken from brushing against
Let me bring this back just a little bit. Hold on. This is how it works with me. Let me let this play. Now, earlier today I wanted Danelle's TikToks. People were asking her, why didn't he take this jewelry? Right here, there's 14 different sets of jewelry. That is a Rolex women's watch. And she said it was because he couldn't see it. Okay? She said that there was this thing here and that thing here and that he couldn't see it. Okay? I'll let this play a minute.
Jewelry and a Rolex watch were openly missed by the intruder. Routier says he fled.
Now, it's right here. The knife was found on the other side of this. There's the jewelry. The intruder came in through this way. Now, he could have either went around an island that way or went around an island that way. Right, but either way, the knife block was over here, which leads me to believe that he would come around this way. But at any rate, now one could say that the flash from the camera is causing all this reflection. But he didn't miss that jewelry. And she said he didn't want to go rummaging around. Okay. All right. But it's not that he can't see it. It's that he wasn't there.
Through the adjoining kitchen. But only a single wine glass was broken from brushing against a fragile rack full, and Routier's blood was under the broken glass. A vacuum cleaner also appeared knocked over, but Routier's blood dropped on it while it was still upright, and the floor beneath it is spotted with Routier's blood and her barefoot prints. The intruder supposedly cut open a window screen from outside into the garage, but a bread knife was found in the Routier's kitchen butcher block
now
with
look,
fragments of the fiberglass.
Hold on. Now, that's where the butcher knife came from. That means the intruder would have been standing right here to get that butcher knife. Right? He's just a couple inches away from all that jewelry. Now people know my background. They know that I have I've been on the other side of the law. And if you try to think like a criminal, I don't know what a killer would think like, though. But he's right here to get this knife, and apparently, this serrated knife somehow. I don't know. And that stuff is just right there where he's got to go. He could either go back around or he could go closer towards where that bar is and the sink and all that. But he would have passed that stuff and he would have saw it. I think he would have saw it. If he were actually there.
A screen on its blade. This microscopic look shows a strand on the left from the screen matches the one on the right found stuck to the knife.
We had a good case. Police department, 2 crime labs, 3 consultants, DA's office, grand jury, FBI. We did consultants.
All those people that James Cron just described had a spell cast on him by the prosecutor in the case, Greg Davis. According to Darlie's sister, Danelle. He cast a spell on all those people. These are words that she actually said to me. And she tells me that my debating in the case is ridiculous. I'm not here to insult her. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to, even if she insults me, I'm not going to do that because Danelle does get attacked by non-supporters. She does. And that's to be expected. People are very passionate about this. I get attacked for what my son did. I understand that. Sorry. I understand how it works. I understand it is to be mad at somebody for that. She does get attacked. But I'm not going to attack her. And I'm going to tell you, I've had the same Darlie groups for years, right? And since there hasn't been anything happening in the case, let me get this out of there. Since there hasn't been anything happening in the case, I know the Innocence Project has picked it up. And the Innocence Project has also picked up other cases. Right now that's where it's at. The DA in Dallas is going to look at it again. They did it under Craig Watkins, and they found everything to be just fine, which is what the DA in Dallas is going to do. So there's really not much going on in the case, and I've argued it to the point where that I am so fucking well versed in it. So the only thing I can do is wait for the IP to back out of it, right? Because they will. Okay. Darlie has had a lot of, she's got a lot of support, right? But you can see earlier when WFFA Dallas did the interview with Toby Shook, 76% of viewers, that's people in the Dallas area, believe that she's guilty. Okay. So, and she's had Injustice Anywhere, failed senator campaign. Bill Clutter tried to run for senator, and he failed. She's had Indiana State University for Darlie Routier. It was actually the Facebook page ISU for Darlie is still there. She's had David Cam. David Cam, if you look him up, is the Indiana State trooper who was convicted of killing his wife and 2 children, I believe, and it took him 3 separate trials to get out. But he proved himself to be innocent, and I believe David Cam is innocent. Well, Bill Clutter honed in on him and tried to suck him into this Darlie Routier thing with ISU. He actually went to ISU to speak. And they came out so strong, and the supporters were on their side, and it was like, we're going to raise the bar on this, and we're going to prove Darlie innocent, and David Cam is taking over her case. They were so excited about David Cam taking her case. Well, after a couple of months, we didn't hear anything. Nothing. And you don't hear nothing from David Cam. And I'm going to tell you why you don't hear nothing from David Cam. Because David Cam is a former police officer. And he knows bullshit lies when he sees it. So David Cam backed out. Indiana State University backed out, and Bill Clutter backed out. And the Innocence Project out of New York has picked her case up. I commend them. I want to be sure every single thing is done. I don't agree with the death penalty. And I sure don't want to see a woman who's innocent die for this. But these people back away. Right? They just back away all the time. And I think they look into it and they say, no way, she's guilty. She's guilty.
Get Darlie, it's harder to prove somebody in the house who did it than it is an intruder. And there was no intruder.
Jim Cron, a veteran of more than 4,000 crime scenes with bodies, says dozens of pieces of evidence contradicted Routier's story. But Routier's husband says his wife is resting well on death row.
And she can sleep at night. She can sleep because she knows the truth. It doesn't affect her in that way.
prosecutors didn't have to prove a motive, but they say Routier's obsession with her appearance, material things, money problems, depression, and suicide may explain why she snapped. John?
Well, Robert, I understand that the lender foreclosed on the house. Whatever happened?
Well, the house will soon go on the auction block. The realtor says there's been a surprising number of interested buyers even before the house has gone on the market. During the last 2 months, it has been painted, new carpeting has been installed, and new light fixtures hung. Bargain hunters will be asked for sealed bids. Nearby residents hope a new owner will help their Rowlett neighborhood get back to normal. Tracy, John.
Robert, thank you very much.
Darlie Routier secretly took a lie detector test last year before the murder trial that sent it.
Now, I also asked Miss Danelle Stahl-Fugate why her mom lied, and there's no other way to say it. Or okay, I could clean it up a little bit. Why did her mom mislead by not stating the fact that Darlie took a lie detector test? And she failed it. Also, Barb Davis, the one who wrote Precious Angels, she came on to the Lisa show and said, I know she took a lie detector test. I was there. I know what she was asked. And she failed it. And then she became a Darlie supporter. But she said she was there and she failed it. I asked her why her mother would come and say that on national TV. And because I just wanted to hear how she would explain it. And she didn't explain it. She said, I won't speak on what my mom said. So I thought about asking Danelle, well, did she take one? But the fact is, they said that it was inconclusive, and protocol for a polygraph exam that is inconclusive is to retake it, and Darlie never has. The fact of the matter is, the results of the lie detector test have never been released to the public. Why hasn't she taken one again? But anyways, right here's that lie.
Or confirms their clients are telling the truth. Bill Parker, a private investigator and polygraph examiner who consulted for Rowlett Police on the case, says,
Now, I don't like this guy, and I don't give anything that he says any credit at all. He seems creepy to me, and I just don't give him any credit. Not that he's lying or anything, but there's something shady about him, and I've always said that about Bill Parker.
the covert test probably indicates Routier flunked.
She done well on any of the issues in that polygraph examination. We would have all heard about it long before now.
While Routier prepares for her appeal on Texas death row for women, her mother and family campaigns to clear her.
She wanted to take a polygraph. She wanted to do hypnosis.
Did she ever take a polygraph?
Oh, she never took a polygraph.
But in fact, Routier's court-appointed attorney obtained a sealed motion for a polygraph shortly before jury selection began.
Now that is Darlie Key flat telling a lie. First they say it's inconclusive and it's never been released, and then they try to say it was never taken at all.
The judge ordered the Dallas County Jail to allow the polygraph test without the knowledge of the district attorney's office. According to jail records, on Friday, October 4th, during the afternoon, Routier was moved from her cell in the Lou Sterrett Justice Center through the basement Sally port into a room at the Crowley Courts building. It was in there that she was given a polygraph exam, which lasted 6 hours. Routier's mother met with her daughter within minutes of finishing the polygraph.
Wouldn't she have told you that she
I believe she would have, yes.
And why don't you think she did?
I don't know.
Routier's mother said,
It makes me wonder. It really does make me wonder if Darlie didn't want to tell anybody about that test in her family unless she passed it. Or Darlie Key is flat telling a lie. I don't know. But the fact that Darlie Key was there that day tells me she was there to give her support for taking the test.
Says Doug Parks, the court-appointed lawyer at the time, did not tell the family about the polygraph. Parks declined to discuss the polygraph, citing attorney-client attorney-client privilege. Parks filed this bill with Dallas County 4 days after the polygraph, requesting a $1,000 payment for 5 hours of confidential consultation. In a follow-up letter on the bill to the county auditor, Parks wrote, "This is still a sensitive issue, and identification of the consultant would violate an attorney-client privilege." Under a recent court ruling, polygraph evidence is not always inadmissible in court. Investigator Bill Parker says if Darlie Routier truthfully answered the questions about the murder of her sons, then she should authorize the release of her polygraph test charts and results. Robert Riggs, Channel 8 News.
Become a psychotic.
While awaiting her punishment on Texas death row for women, Darlie Routier drew this crude sketch in an effort to prove she didn't stab her 2 sons to death. Forensics and crime scene experts say it may support their case that Routier superficially cut her own throat to cover up the murders. Routier says she's innocent.
Superficially. Peabody Award-winning journalist with a master's in literature. Superficially cut. That does not mean directional. And he's using the word correctly.
Innocent in a pamphlet titled In Her Own Words.
She's still coming up with different stories, and that's one of the reasons why she is so unbelievable, is because she keeps changing the facts of the story.
Patricia Springer has written a soon-to-be-released book about the murder case. She says there was no evidence that an intruder attacked Routier's.
Fun fact. Patricia Springer was hired to write a book on Darlie's innocence. She, in turn, hired private investigator that runs TOVA, the Other Advocates Agency, Tina Church, to investigate and do the research so Springer could write a book about Darlie's innocence. This is all set by the family. The detective could not find any evidence of innocence and allegedly told the family they couldn't find any evidence of innocence. So the book Flesh and Blood about her guilt was supposed to be written about her innocence. But the detective, the private eye that she hired, well known, could not find innocence and could not give her any research to write a book of innocence for her.
2 sons that ran at home last year and then slashed their mother's throat. Although Routier was wearing a gold chain necklace at the time, prosecutors say there wasn't a scratch on it. On her drawing, Routier notes the cut was made right to left. Pathologists were unable to scientifically determine the direction of the cut. Routier has drawn 2 diagrams of the crime scene, but testified she suffered temporary amnesia and couldn't remember much about the attack. An investigator finds it unusual that Routier didn't draw eyes on the sketch of her face.
Eyes are the windows to the soul. Maybe she didn't want subconsciously it made her not draw eyes
Rest
on her
in
sketch.
peace,
But,
Jim Crow.
and see the truth.
The murder has become a textbook case on teaching officers how to recognize a staged murder scene. The case remains of interest because it's so unbelievable that a mother could take the lives of her children.
They want to know what made her do it. They want to know what made her snap, if that's what she did, or what drove her to that point, because it is just so against human nature.
And will we ever know?
Robert Riggs, Channel 8 News.
This is the News 8 Update.
The Dallas County District Attorney and the Sheriff's Department are investigating new allegations against convicted killer Darlie Routier. Details about a letter sent to the judge reviewing her murder trial tops tonight's update.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. Darlie Routier has been back in the Dallas County Jail for 2 months as a judge reviews the transcript of her murder.
While she was back in the Dallas County Jail, we had a supporter who used to say that he would get phone calls from her and talk to her all the time. David Moffat. This is a guy. Dave Moff runs Free Darlie. He used to. I don't know what happened to him. But he was so enamored with her that the police had a standoff at his house because his fiance at the time, Joan Zern, told him, his obsessive writing to Darlie and professing his love to Darlie. She took all his letters and tore them up and threw them out in the driveway. And he attacked her, and he had about a 2-hour standoff with police in Minnesota. And he was convicted of that. This is one of Darlie Routier's supporters. And this is his obsession was about Darlie Routier. These are facts that we as non-supporters know. David Moffat, that runs, I'll show you some other stuff too, that runs Free Darlie. He's the one I gave Free Darlie to. I said, here's your new administrator. I can't support this any longer. David Moffat.
Routier has threatened the court reporter.
Darlie Routier's chance of getting a new capital murder trial hinges on an unusual review of her court transcript. 7 days after District Judge Robert Francis ordered the independent comparison for accuracy, he received this letter from the Dallas County Jail. The letter was written anonymously by another inmate who claims she overheard Routier making threats. The misspelled letter to Judge Francis states, "The court reporter's life is in jeopardy if you, the court, makes her verify the accuracy of the court records." If the accuracy is verified, it means Routier would not get a new trial. News 8 has learned that the intelligence unit from the Dallas County Sheriff's Department dusted the letter for fingerprints, traced its origin back to the jail here, but has been unable to determine who wrote it. The letter's author states, "I will testify to what I hear her say, but I am afraid she will find out it was me and have me killed. She has powerful people on the outside." The letter says that Routier talks to other inmates through electrical conduit which carries their voices between cells. They call the frequent conversations Darlie Live, according to the letter. The inmate's letter also alleges that Routier told another prisoner that she is getting off free on murdering her 2 sons. In reaction, a spokesman for Brian Pardo, the Waco business executive supporting Routier's appeals, says, "Don't you think it's strange that once Darlie Routier's case begins to unravel, that an anonymous inmate comes forward? It's ridiculous."
I didn't murder my children.
A jail official tells News 8 that Routier was also overheard discussing an escape attempt with a male inmate. Investigators are trying to determine if it was serious or if
It wasn't serious. It was Phil Adams.
they were joking. Robert Riggs, Channel 8 News.
The jail has increased security measures in the wake of the alleged threat. Routier's trial transcript is being cannot swear to its accuracy. Routier could get a new trial.